Okay, so this is lesson 3.6, point slope formula. So far, we have discussed the slope formula, which we just went over in our warm-up, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We have talked about the slope-intercept formula, which is something that you have been learning since probably 7th grade, y equals mx plus b. We've talked about the standard form of an equation, which is ax plus by equals c, and that is an equation that we typically use when we're trying to find the x and y intercepts, or if we have a word problem that includes two different variables. Now we're going to learn point slope formula. And so I'm going to go over the equation and then explain when you would use this. Okay, so the equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where m is your slope, just like always. Your x and y just stay there. Those you just keep them there as variables. Then you have something different. You have y1 and x1. Those are just the coordinates of an ordered pair. So this would be your x of the ordered pair, and that would be your y of the ordered pair. When would you use this? You would use this primarily when you have a point, an ordered pair, and a slope. Thus the name point slope formula. And all you're going to do is you will plug the values into the equation, and you will then turn it into slope intercept. Okay, because slope intercept is the form of an equation we use the most. So let's go ahead and go down to our example 1. We're going to do the examples together. You will do the practices on your own. And you're going to first write out the equation. What I'm doing. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay. And when you are plugging in, you need to realize that the slope is your m, the 4 in your ordered pair is x1, and the 6 in your ordered pair is y1. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug these in. Remember, this y and this x stay y and x. You don't change those. So you have y minus y1, or y1 is 6, equals m, our slope, which is 3, x, remember this x stays the same, minus x1, which is the x in your ordered pair of 4. Okay. And so that's how you plug in the information. Then you will turn this into whatever form the problem is asking you to turn it into. And so in this case, we're going to turn it into slope intercept form, the y equals mx plus b. So the way we do this is we just start simplifying the equation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply 3 times x and then 3 times negative 4. So we're going to distribute that 3. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times negative 4 is a negative 12. Now we still need to isolate this y, which means that we need to get rid of the 6. So we are going to add 6 to both sides. We have now isolated the y, and we have y equals 3x minus 6. So the two answers that you have are, 1, you put it into point slope form, and 2, you put it into slope intercept form. Okay. Questions? Okay, let's do example 2. I'm going to write out the equation. This is not a necessary step, but if it helps you, you can write out that blank equation. Okay, my slope is m of -3, x1 is 4, and y1 is a -6. Now I want you to be very careful with this one because in the equation, we are subtracting. So watch what happens when I do this. I have y minus my y1. Well, my y1 is a -6. So I'm subtracting a -6, which makes a positive. So really what I'm doing is I'm taking y and I'm adding the opposite. And then I have a slope of -3 times x minus x1, and x1 is 4. So we plug those in, and now we are going to turn this into slope-intercept form. And we are first going to distribute our -3. We have y plus 6 equals -3x plus 12, because -3 times a -4 gives you a positive 12. We still need to isolate the y, so we're going to subtract 6 on both sides. This is very similar to example 1. And we have y equals -3x plus 6. I'm going to go ahead and have you do practice 1 and 2. And I'm going to pause the video while we do this. And when we come back, we will check our answer. Okay, go ahead and check practice 1. Make sure you did that correctly. And then I put up half of practice 2. Make sure you plugged in that correctly, just in case some of you are not finished with that. Okay, are there any questions? I'm going to go ahead and move up practice 2 so you could see the final answer. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Okay.
It's because it's minus a negative, then that becomes a positive, and then
You subtract.
subtract it.
Oh, I know what I did.
Okay, so we have, we're going to go to page 2. We have a lot of practice on page 2 of the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I want you to go ahead and work through the example ones on your own. And if I gauge that everybody's getting the concept, we will not do the practice ones. Okay. So I'm going to have everybody work on examples 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I can help you if you need any help. And when I resume the video, we'll come back and check it. Okay, so I just did the practice ones just to have them here. You only had to do the examples though, so if you want to check your answers on those first 2, you can. If you're struggling and you want to go back and do the practice problems, then we can do that, or you can do that and then check your answers with me. So any questions on the first 2? And move it down. Okay. Then here is 5 and 6.
So no,
Okay.
reduce the section.
You mean turn it into a mixed number? No. You should never have a mixed number from this point on due to our graphing.
And so how do you have to that transmitting? Because that's a y-intercept, so how would that be that transmit to that?
Oh, I'm referring to the slope. So here we usually don't put mixed numbers or mixed numbers in the equations. If you do, I'm not going to mark it wrong because it's still equivalent, but typically we just write them as improper fractions. But this would be 6.5, And so then you would, or this one would be
6.
three. This one right here would be 3 2/3, right? 3 2/3, 9 and 11. Yeah, if you were to turn 11/3 into a mixed number. So you just plot it on, in between 3 and 4 somewhere. Okay, let's go ahead and go to page 3. Page 3, we're adding a step. This time, instead of giving us a slope and a point, they're giving us 2 ordered pairs, which means that we have to find the slope. Then we can plug it into the point slope formula and turn it into slope intercept. Remember that the slope formula is right here. Okay. So that's the first thing we're going to do is figure out our slope. Then you're going to plug the, you're going to plug a point and the slope into point slope form, and then you're going to turn it into slope intercept. Now, the only difference between this page and the previous page is that you have to find the slope first. Okay, so let's look at 7. Remember our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, and up here, we have our points, x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're just going to plug those into the slope formula to find our slope. So y2 is -5 minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is a -4, minus x1, which is 4. We have to solve this. Now, if you are still struggling with integer ops, then this might be a little bit challenging. But one thing that I always do in my head with subtraction is I change it to addition and make the next number its opposite. So I'm adding the opposite. And when I turn this to addition, it makes it so much easier to solve. Okay. So if I have -5 and -3, I have a total of 8 negatives. If I have 4 negatives and another 4 negatives, I have a total of 8 negatives again. And then -8 divided by -8 is a 1. So my first answer here is that I have a slope of 1. Any questions about finding slope? We've done this in a couple other lessons. Okay, now we're going to follow step 2. Substitute the slope you got from step 1 and one of the given points into the point slope formula. We are going to choose the first one. Why? Well, they're both positive. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what point you choose. So let's go ahead and I'm going to write out the slope or the point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then I am going to take my slope of 1 and my x1 and y1 and plug it into the equation. So I have y minus y1, which is up here, 3, equals my slope that I got in step 1, 1, times x minus my x1 and my ordered pair of 4. It into slope intercept. So this is the second part of your equation. So let's distribute that 1. Go ahead and keep solving it. So you get 2 slope intercept. Question?
I still got 1x.
You can put 1x there.
Oh.
It's just remember in front of the variable, if there's not a number, there's an imaginary one.
Oh, okay, would it like still be wrong if I put one?
No, it would be right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's do example 8. We're gonna find the slope first. Well, then, oh yeah, I did it. So we have x1, y1. And we're gonna plug those in. So y2 is 2, and we're gonna subtract y1, which is a -2. Which, again, I'm gonna change that to adding the opposite. And then x2 is -4 minus x1, which is 2. Again, I'm going to turn my subtraction into adding the opposite. So go ahead and check your slope. And when we plug it into point slope, let's go ahead and use that first ordered pair again. We're going to use the first one on all of these. And I'm going to write out the formula. So we just found the slope. So -2/3 is our slope. Our x1 is 2 in our ordered pair, and our y1 is -2 in our ordered pair. So we're going to plug those in. Yeah.
We can't see.
Oh, I'm sorry. So go ahead and see if you plugged everything in correctly and your signs are the same. And then we could start solving. So we're going to distribute the -2/3. And we're going to end up with a fraction again. So it's important that you know your fraction, how to solve fractions. So we have y plus 2 equals -2/3 x plus, because we have a negative times a negative, so plus 4/3. And now I'm going to show you how I've been solving the fractions on here. I have to subtract 2 on both sides, right? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to subtract 2 over 1. And then I change my denominator here. I have to make it a 3 so that we have the same denominator. So I'm going to multiply both my denominator and my numerator by 3, and I end up with a -6/3. Move my 4/3 over. And now I'm going to subtract. Okay. So I end up with y equals -2/3 x. And then I have a 4 minus 6 minus 2/3. And that is my final answer. Questions? It's a lot of practice. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you. Then you're going to do these 3 on your own. So this one is a little simpler because we have our y-intercept right there. But we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So go ahead and set up, find your slope. And then check up here to make sure that you set it up correctly. Okay. Once you check that, solve for your slope.
Is that how you put a 0? Can you just put -5 since it's?
Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay, once you get your slope, you're gonna plug all of this into your point slope formula. And again, I'm gonna use that first point. Okay, and when you're finished, go ahead and check up here. And I'm gonna go ahead and have you do all the practice on your own, and then we will check them in just a minute. So I'm gonna pause the video while we do that. Okay, so here is 7. All of 7. Okay, and here is 8. Any questions on these? Anyone need me to hold off just a minute?
Why is it still positive?
A negative times a negative is a positive. Is that what you're talking about? And then here's the rest of 9. Hey, any questions on this? Okay, we are, again, you can look at my notes when we're finished. We're gonna go ahead and go to the last page. So on this page, we're gonna actually create an equation based on a graph. And so it says at the top, the directions, how to identify the equation of a line from its graph using point slope form. So we have identified equations and slope intercept from the graph, but this time we are going to put it into point slope form. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to select a point on the graph that crosses the intersection of a box. So I see that this line crosses at 1, 2. It crosses at, what is that? 3, 3. And it crosses at 5, 4. And it crosses at -1, 2, -4, 0. It crosses out all those points. Okay. And it really doesn't matter which point you choose. They would all be correct. So we are going to choose, just so that we all have the same answer here, we're going to choose 1, 2. So our ordered pair is 1, 2. Then what we're going to do is we're going to find the slope. So in this case, we're going to use rise over run. So here I'm rising 1, I'm running 2. And so our slope is 1/2. So we did steps 1 and 2. We determined an ordered pair. We found the slope. Now we're going to do 3. We're going to substitute the slope and the values from one ordered pair into the point slope formula.
It could be any.
Yeah. And in a minute, I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter what ordered pair you choose, you will always end up with the same slope intercept equation. You won't end up with the same point slope equation, but you will slope intercept. So now we're going to substitute the values into the point slope form. Okay, and so this, the 1 is x1, the 2 is, oops, I put y2. The 2 is y1. And then your slope of 1/2 is your m, okay? So let's go ahead and plug that in. We have y minus y1, which is 2, equals a slope of 1/2 is x minus x1, which is 1. Oh, great, we're gonna have another fraction. That's okay. So we have done step 3. We have plugged it into the point slope form. Now we're going to turn it into slope intercept form. So let's go ahead and distribute that 1/2. And in order to isolate the y, we have to add 2 to both sides. And remember, I'll show you again how I deal with my fractions. So I'm going to add 2 over 1. But when I'm adding, I have to have common denominators. So I'm going to make this denominator a 2 to match that one, which means I multiply both my denominator and my numerator by 2. Okay, then I'm going to bring these over. I have negative 1/2 on top, and I'm adding 4/2. Okay. So now I have y equals 1/2 x, and I have a negative 1/2 plus 4/2, which gives me a positive 3/2. And so then this would be my slope intercept equation. Okay. Any questions? Okay, working with the person next to you, I want you guys to choose an ordered pair on the next graph. Actually, I want you and your partner to choose a different ordered pair. And then what I want you to do is when you convert it into slope intercept, you should all or both have the same slope intercept formula or equation. So in looking at this one, I don't know how many. It crosses at -4, -5, -1, -3, 2, -1, and 5, 1. So choose a different ordered pair and then find your slope. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video while you work on this, and then we'll come back and check it. Okay, this is what you should have gotten. Now I know with the fractions, it might be a little more complex to find, but that's what everyone should have gotten. This is gonna look different. I chose -1, -3. Okay, you guys might have chosen a different ordered pair, but in the end, your slope intercept equation should be the same. Okay. That concludes lesson 3.6, point slope formula.